Welcome to the Bret Boone podcast. I am Bret Boone, and today, simply enough, I'm joined by one of the best college coaches in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome U of A's basketball coach, Tommy Lloyd. Tommy, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Thanks for having me. I don't know if I'm happy that Richie Sexson introduced us, but usually this time of year I'm not doing a lot of interviews, but
No, and that, I
hey,
knew that.
for
I
you
knew
and the
that, but
Mariners, I'll do anything.
I appreciate that. And Richie pointed it out to me. He said, well, he's, Gonzaga and his ties, and he's a Northwest guy. I said, well, maybe I
Yeah.
got a chance then. And you got right back to me, and I appreciate that a lot. Um, and we'll talk about Richie enough throughout this. I got to get some intel on him because I get a hard time about my basketball prowess. Um, right out of the gate, I started watching U of A, and I've conveyed that to you. I'm an SC guy, so that's kind of
Yeah.
taboo. But I've gotten into the U of A for a lot of different reasons. And people would call me a front runner because I don't watch just every college basketball game. But I've started to watch you. I was back in coaching last year. I went back on the field for the Texas Rangers as their hitting coach, and I'd
Yeah.
been away a long time, and I'd gotten back into that mode. By the way, toughest. It was way harder than playing. So you guys that do this for years and years, I feel for you. You know, when I was done last year, I felt like going back and apologizing to every coach I had along the way in my journey because I had no idea the heartache you feel behind closed doors and keeping those guys motivated, keeping them playing. But how competitive are you as a person, coaching basketball aside?
Oh, I mean, I think you have to be extremely competitive to do this. I try to keep a good perspective on things. I mean, I think there's obviously a lot more to life than just winning and losing, and I think just basing your happiness solely on winning or losing could be a really tough existence. So I try to keep a good perspective, but I think like a lot of coaches, and I'm sure you felt this a little bit when you were coaching last year, just you become really process oriented, and what's really cool is baseball they would say is a game of failure, right? Well, so is basketball. There's so many mistakes made, and how do you weather those storms while guys are making mistakes and struggling, but get them through it, just to have some glimpses of success. So to me, I mean, that's the driving force is just lock it into that process oriented mentality and it just loving enjoying it. And like, unfortunately for me, I wasn't as talented or good of an athlete as you. So, I grew up playing everything, but coaching just kind of got me because I was like, man, I love helping people and competing. I love competing. I love trying to figure out how to win a game. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, is how do you handle losing? Like for me, losing is just like a part of the process, and it presents a real challenge and a real opportunity to respond and get better. And if you approach it like that, I think you can survive in this business for a long time. Because if it crushes you and you're embarrassed by losing and get frustrated easily, man, I don't know how you can survive in this deal.
Well, I'll tell you, just the brief experience I've had now, and playing and coaching completely different when it comes to winning and losing, especially at the professional level. When Major League Baseball, it's 162 games. It ain't going away.
Great.
It's
Yeah.
There's nowhere to hide. It's like you stink right now, and guess what? You're in the lineup tomorrow and the next day and the
Yeah.
next day and the next day and the next day, and it's not going away. So as a player, just through trial and error, just through life experience, getting my butt kicked and having to get back off the ground and learn from that. I learned the most ever, and I tell this to the kids today. I didn't learn by kicking ass. I didn't learn by having great seasons, all-star seasons. I learned by all my failures. And
Hmm.
and now all of a sudden I knew how to accept the real positive things, the great years, the great games. It was a little bit more of but I know what it takes to get to this point because I know what the other side is. Now, from a coaching perspective, now I retired like a lot of guys. I coached my kids travel ball. And then my second wave of kids came through, and I coached them. And then I was done. I'm like, all right, this youth baseball is I've got enough dealing with parents and all the people. And then I did a little for a year or two. I worked for the Oakland A's
Hmm.
and I did it in the minor league side. Really enjoyed that, Tommy, working with young players, guys
Yeah.
like Clay and A-ball and Double A instead of the big league guys that are supposed finished products. And I enjoyed that. And then this last year, I went back, and you talk about humbling. I went into it. I got a call from a buddy of mine, Bruce Bochy, in late April.
Hmm.
He said, Boone, I need you to come put a uni on again. And I just kind of sat there on the phone. I said, are you serious? Yes. So I thought about it, and Bruce is a mentor of mine,
Yeah.
managed me in San Diego. And I just thought, how can I say no to Bruce? Got on a plane, flew there, started interacting with the players. I just put on my coach's hat and say, okay, what do, what do I do? I said, well, I've got to get to know these guys first on a
Yeah.
personal basis. They've got to be able to trust me. So the process started, and I remember our second game. First game, we lit it up. We got 16 hits. We're moving runners. People in the dugout are yelling the boom effect, and I'm sitting there going, "There's nowhere to go but down from here." So then the process started, and I just thought, "All right, what is a hitting coach?" And I thought, well, I've had 100 of them. What did they do? And I just started, trial and error, just like I was a
Yeah.
player, a young player again, and thought, I'm going to come to the ballpark every day and I'm going to prepare like I'm going to hit tonight. And what does that
Yeah.
make you do? I'm going to look at film of the opposing player. I'm going to check my track record with this pitcher tonight. What have I done against him? What's he been successful in? And it was a slow process, but I kind of, as time went on, a couple months in, it became like clockwork. And I was coming to the ballpark, doing my thing, checking my spots. Long-winded. I'm sorry. I
No,
know
no,
you
you're
asked
good.
me
You're good.
about winning
I
and
love
losing.
listening.
The winning and losing thing. This is where it separates player, coach. Player, like I said, every day, win, lose, draw, I found a way to, after the game, could be an 0 for 4. I had a bad night. We got our butt kicked. Okay. Life goes on, but I'm not going to be particularly happy. The music isn't going to be pumping in the clubhouse, but I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
do
yeah.
my post game routine. And when those lights go off and I hit the carport, get in my car and go home, today is over. Okay,
Hmm.
tomorrow's a new day. Now I've got to be able to do the same thing with winning. If I just went 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs and we won 10-2, yeah, the music can play, but that doesn't mean I'm partying like it's 1999. I mean, I've
Hmm.
got another game tomorrow. So enjoy the moment with your teammates. As soon as I hit that carport, today is over. Now
Yeah.
tomorrow. So I was able to handle losing as a player because it's a part of life. It's a part of the game. Of course, I went in
Hmm.
every game it like it's the end of the world. We got to win tonight. But I knew that wasn't reality. Now, fast forward to being a coach. Holy Toledo! I was bowled over by the fact that how much I ended up caring about the players.
Hmm.
That was the one thing that shocked me. I knew I'd go in there and lay it on the line and try to help them as much as I could. But I didn't
Hmm.
realize the connection you'd have and how much during the game you're living and dying with these kids and keeping that stoic look on the sidelines because you don't want
Hmm.
to see anybody see you sweat. But when they did well inside, I had fireworks going off, stoic look, but I'm so excited for them. And when they're struggling, oh, it was like my kid struggling in 14U. It was like,
Hmm.
oh, we got to get back to the drawing board tomorrow. So that was the thing for me. Losing as a coach, the toughest thing I've ever gone through. It's like when we lost, it was the end of the earth. But when we won, it was more of a relief. Like, all right, we lived to play
Hmm.
another day. But when we lost, I was 0 for 5 every time. It was my
Hmm.
fault. And I think it was just the early experience of me as a in a different position that I hadn't gone through before in my life. I had zero control. Once that national anthem ends,
Yeah.
it's out of my hands. All that work we did before, okay, let's go. Come on, Johnny. And he'd
Yeah,
get in the
yeah.
box, and it didn't matter. It's you and the pitcher, and it was unbelievable. And as much as I think it's, people ask me at the end of this first year, what was it like? I said, well, it was kind of miserable, but it was what I'm built for. I'm built to
Yeah.
be miserable because I could imagine what it would be like to win. and
Yeah.
not just win a division, but to go deep in the postseason and get to the World Series. As a player, I got through the playoffs and I've been to World Series, and it was all great, but it was a different mentality because I had some sort of control. As a coach, once that game started, yeah, I can help. I always
Yeah.
said I'm a background player. I'm not a player. I'm a background player. But once that anthem ended, man, it was like it was out of my control.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a lot of great points. I mean, for one, relationships. I mean, if you're coaching, if you're going to be in this for the long haul, you're not doing it for yourself. I mean, you're doing it to serve others. To me, that's the number one thing. And the winning and losing thing. I worked for uh, a great coach at Gonzaga, Mark Few. And he's still having a lot of success there, and he's a great guy, and he's got a real, good approach on life and things. And he really kind of just modeled to me and showed me that, like, you know we need to celebrate our wins, and we need to feel good about winning, because we don't want to get in the mindset where winning's more of a relief, and losing's devastating and winning's just a temporary relief from losing. How can you flip your mindset to where there's real joy in the wins? And man, I feel like I've grown so much in the last 5 years. My fifth year being a head coach, I was an assistant for 22 at a place that I loved, and I was a small part of a lot bigger success there. So that was great, and it was a great training ground. But coming here, at a place like Arizona, where you're only going to be judged by winning and losing, and you're only going to be judged by winning and losing in March. To be honest with you, I mean, at the end of the day, and we've had some great regular seasons. Now we gotta do that in the postseason. So that's literally what I'm staring down right now. And today, before I jumped on with you, I'm sitting there with my, okay, we have a couple days off where we play Colorado in our last regular season game, and then all the postseason tournaments start. So I got to start my postseason build today, and thinking about mindset. And what's funny, and to tie this thing together, and one of the reasons I was willing to jump on with you, I love baseball, and I think baseball is a great teaching tool for coaches, just because it's such a mental game and there's so much patience involved in it. Just the space in between plays and the waiting. I mean, oh my God, like it's crazy. So I read a great book, and the book was recommended to me by, again, I was kind of with USA Basketball. Steve Kerr and his crew were out at lunch, and we're talking about, sports psychology stuff, just coach talk, and somebody said, man, you got to read this book, and it's called The Way of Baseball by Sean Green. And stillness at 95 miles per hour. The lefty Sean Green. He was a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
time
hitter.
Toronto. Yeah, it's the best sports book I've ever read.
Really?
And unbelievable. And it's layered with so many things. He really got into the breathing stuff and meditation. I don't think you have to go that extreme with some of it, but just his approach. And like you said, letting go at the carport for him, a bat at bat, he could carry it with him, carry it with him. The moment he took his batting gloves off, it was over. And his whole deal was about staying present and being in that moment. And he has a great quote in there, hitting for the future, usually hurts your hitting, for today, and it's so true. If you're like, man, I got to have a big year because I'm a free agent and I want a
Right.
contract, you know what I mean? Like, so you're getting out ahead of yourself. So I really, like, this last year, kind of locked in on his book, and like I've got that thing drilled down. I got notes on it, and I use it as little refreshers all the time. And it's just with that mindset to staying present and true essence and all these really, really, really cool things. I mean, the book is layered with so many great things that I can't believe it hasn't just like taken off and exploded, because it's the best mindset for sports book that I've ever read. So I use that kind of training to continue to help myself become a better coach. And I thought you said something interesting early. You played for a lot of coaches. Now you're coaching. One of the biggest regrets I have is I feel like I'm such a better coach today than I was 15, 20 years ago. And I feel bad for those players that played for me 15 or 20 years ago, because I wish I could have helped them more. And so I always keep that in the back of my mind. It's about serving the players, and for me, getting better at my craft, to get out of their way when they're performing out there. So when it is out of my control, th- they're in control. And for me, the most joy I have in coaching is when I'm watching our team play, and whether it's a tough moment or a good moment, and on their own, they're having success based on the concepts and the fundamentals that we value and teach. My favorite part of coaching is not calling a timeout and saying, "Hey, we're going to run Husky 4, Husky 4," and call the play. And then they go out and the play works, and the coach looks like a genius. That's
Right.
not my favorite part. My favorite part is when the players are doing things on their own when it is out of the coach's control. I mean, that's the part of coaching that I've really become to value and love and enjoy.
By the way, I was a breathing guy, so I'd be
Okay.
interested in reading what Sean had to
Read
say.
that book. It's called The Way of Baseball, Stillness at 95 miles per hour. And you know that feeling. He
Yeah.
talks a lot about stillness, and he really talks about a lot of cool things like the separation of timing between movements. How is your loading as a hitter? Everybody thinks there's like a lot of one fluid motion, but there's that load moment where there's a pause in between, and how important those little pauses in between. It's fascinating to read. Like, I think you would love the book, and I actually got a hold of Sean this year through Nick Foles. Nick Foles was a quarterback here at
Oh yeah.
Arizona, and I told him about this book, and Nick's like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, I read this book," and he's like, Sean lives in our area. Let me get his number for you." So I connected with Sean on the phone, and such a humble guy. And I said, "Hey, have you done any like speaking deals on this thing?" He's like, I wrote the book 15 years ago. I tried a few times, but I'm an introvert, so it really wasn't for me." But he just told me, he's like, "Hey, I haven't thought about that book in a lot of years, but I really appreciate it impacted you," because the book is literally like it's a guide to how to think and approach things. It's powerful.
Your style on the and this is what I noticed because I watch when I watch TV when I watch sports I watch the little things that
Yeah,
probably I don't know if everybody watches, but I watch you and your demeanor. College sports, professional basketball, a lot of coaches, wham, madmen pacing up and down.
yeah,
Doesn't seem like that's your style. You're kind of sitting there hanging out, and I talked about always trying to don't let them see you sweat. That
yeah,
was
yeah.
me as I was that way as a player. I didn't show any
Mhm.
emotion on the field. I never, no matter how big the moment, no matter how bad the moment, I tried to just act indifferent. Now, when I'm behind closed doors with my teammates, oh, I'm jumping up and down doing
Yeah,
backflips.
yeah,
But I always on the field, and I think that maybe was just my generation of players.
yeah. Hmm.
We didn't show up anybody. We just played, and we never got too high. We never got too low. That was the way we did it. But I watch your demeanor on the sideline. It's different than most. It's not that panic up and down. And a lot of times I'll sit there in a big moment watching your game. They'll pan to you, and you're just cool as a cucumber sitting there next to your assistant.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you don't know what's going on inside,
Right.
but
Right. Oh, I know what's going on inside.
yeah, but I just I think of it like this: like, if I want my team to be steady and poised, I need to be steady and poised.
Mhm.
And so and I just don't want to make things about me and make it a spectacle. And there's, hey, for sure I'm having conversations with officials. For sure I might get animated once in a while, but I think you're right. And then that's another thing I learned from Mark Few. I mean, he was cool as a cucumber, you know what I mean, on the sidelines. And I think that helps your teams in those tough moments, where you can stay steady, and you're right. Hey, a win or a loss, can we look the same? Can we respond the same way? Because here's the deal: we want to be consistent, so we want to do it again. If the only way we can get a response out of our team or to feel good is to be psycho, man, that's hard living.
Yeah.
Um,
I look at sports at every level, all sports, basketball, football, obviously a lot different as far as technique and how we go about it. And with plays, baseball, we don't have any plays. Um, but I'm just interested to see how you as head coach interact with individual players. I know as a hitting coach, and I might be sitting there and my skipper comes to me, Booney, what do you think about so and so's last at bat? Da, 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 da. Maybe you talk to him. Well, I've got to decipher right there. I've got, all right, who's he talking about? What's his personality? Is it better
mhm.
for me to talk to him right now? Because if I talk to him right now, I might blow it for him for the rest of the game. He might be
Yeah.
done. But player B, and this is just an example, I might be able to stick my foot in his butt a little bit, and that's
Hmm.
going to fire him up for the rest of the game. I'm sure that happens on your
Yeah.
team. You got certain guys, mid-game timeout, you have a certain way of talking to certain play and other player. If you do that, you'll lose them. You'll lose them
Hmm.
for the game. So it's really about interacting and managing people. interested to know if that's how you go
Oh,
about stuff.
no, it's every day. It's practice. You
Yeah,
gotta, you have to have a standard for how you kind of approach everybody, but that doesn't mean everybody is going to respond the same way, or you have to treat everybody exactly the same. And for me, I think a big part of it is, you got to really work with your staff and teach your staff how you want them to communicate with the players, so it can be divvied out a little bit,
right.
and as a hitting coach, or even an assistant coach at our level is going to have like really, really close relationships with three or four players, probably like really close. And so they kind of become a trusted confidant for that player. So, the messaging can go through the assistant a lot of times, but, and then as a head coach, you got to pick and choose your times when you like, reiterate something, maybe sometimes with force, maybe sometimes it's with a pat on the ass and,
Right.
a hand on the back, like, hey, you got this, and yeah, I mean, to me, it's just, how do you get them confident and fearless, like, where they're not really worried about the result. They're just, locked into the process and doing things the right way, really aggressive. And so, yeah, no, I'm sure it's an art, and obviously part psychologist and all that stuff, but yeah, you're right, that's as important as anything. It's just how you communicate individually with the players is I mean, it matters.
Yeah, it really does. And you were a player, and now you're a head coach, so how,
Yeah.
what coaches through your career, through your playing career, how they approach it, what worked and what didn't work. Um, U of A, going back to my youth, high school, that's the only place I wanted to go. U of A was my place. I was going, I
What
was
happened?
going, I
What
was
happened?
going. Well, okay. I g This is back when NIL wasn't a thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
was you couldn't go on a trip till your senior year, a
Yeah, yeah,
recruiting
yeah,
trip.
yeah.
So U of A is the first letter I ever got
Okay.
from a
Who
college,
is
and
who is the
it's
coach? Do you remember?
Jerry Kendall.
Yeah, Jerry Kendall, Hall of Famer. He's a legend down here. Yep.
So I get and I think was it Stitt? Trying to think of the hit go. Anyway, beginning of my sophomore year, I get a letter from University of Arizona, and that's back then. You get a letter your sophomore year, that's
Oh
a big
yeah,
deal.
yeah.
That's a big
Big
deal. Now
deal.
now you're sending out letters when they're in seventh grade, eighth grade. So anyway, it's just I was a young kid. I started watching the University of Arizona, and at that time they were a powerhouse.
Yeah,
I mean, they're
yeah,
going to
yeah, yeah.
that was back when it was the Pac-6 and best conference in the country baseball
Yeah,
wise. Things have changed now. SEC has become pretty powerful. All these conferences have broken up and changed conferences. But that was where I wanted to go, and I watched those guys, and wherever I could get any intel on them or a game.
yeah.
Oh, I was watching the University of Arizona. They were going to College World Series. So get to my junior or senior year, and I go on my trip, and Chip Hale, who was a player at that time, he
Great,
took
great
me.
friend of mine.
Yeah, Chip's a
Yeah.
great guy, and Chip knows this story too. He's taken me on my recruiting trip, and taking me out, and well, I can't say it, but giving me beers, and so it comes down to crunch time, and Jerry Kendall, he sits me down in the room. He says, "Booney, hey, we really want you to come to U of A, this and that." And at the time I've got 4 or 5 scholarships, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to U of A. It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
And he says, "But I can only give you," and back then it was a full ride.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
goes,
yeah,
I can only offer you a half scholarship. And you talk about crushing my world. I said, how dare you recruit me
yeah,
from my
yeah,
sophomore year? And I was angry. I went and called SC, and I signed with USC. And right before I signed with USC, I got a phone call from them and say, "Hey, we've
yeah,
rethought about it, and you got a
yeah,
full." I said, "No, the damage is already done," and I held that.
yeah.
Definitely my college career, I held that over him.
Oh,
Whenever I'd see Kendall when we go to U of A, I'd kind of give him that look like that. And
yeah,
over the years, of course, you understand. That's just,
yeah.
and I told Jerry, I was teasing him. We were at an event together before. I know he's passed, but we were
Mm,
at an event, and JT Snow, who was a guy I
yep.
played against, was played for Jerry, and he goes, "Hey,
Mm.
you want to get Kendall going and pretend like you're still mad at him from when you were 18? No, I'm 45 years old." I said, "Let's do it." We really pulled it off, and he
uh,
really thought I was still. I said, "Jerry, it it
That's funny.
it ended up okay for me. So
Well, I
that's
gotta I gotta ask you a story then. So no, that's sort of on your SC baseball. So Boog Sciambi does a lot of our games.
okay.
Boog,
Oh yeah,
Boog. He's a Cubs guy, right? Cubs guy, but he does all the ESPN stuff, right? And so he was telling me a story about you because I told him I'm jumping on this podcast. He did our game on Monday, and he said the only Boone story I got secondhand. So you got to verify this. So I guess you're at SC and
oh,
you're
here we
young,
go.
you're a young player, and and they put on hit and run, and you're on, and you're supposed to push it to the right side.
Right.
You knock a double off the left field wall, and just crush it. Your coach calls you over. I think he was a Hall of Fame coach and a great coach, right? And he
Mike
said,
Gillespie. Yeah.
yeah. He just said, hey, Booney, we don't do that here, and you need to go home and talk to your dad about it. And so you went home, you talked to your dad, and came back the next day, and coach said, well, what did your dad say? He said, my dad said you're right, but you told him, you said, yeah, that's why my dad hit eighth and I hit fourth.
Yeah. No, that is true. That is true. You talk about a brash kid and having a lot to learn.
That's funny.
I might have been the most naive freshman in college you could possibly find.
uh,
Now, looking back, I think it ended up being a positive for me. I was so
yeah,
delusional.
yeah,
I got
yeah.
I
Oh,
got
yeah,
believe me, there was humble pie to come. But yeah, that's I've heard that story before, and that's exactly what I would say to Mike Gillespie because he'd say, "Well, your dad, and my dad at the
yeah,
time was still playing for the Angels." And
yeah,
he would
yeah,
say
yeah.
I would always say to him, I said, "I'm not my dad. My dad's not a hitter. He's a defense." But that was me at 18. I mean, I was talk about a knucklehead, but
That's
but
well,
we live in
that's a great story. That's a beautiful story. No, you need that. And now look today. If a guy like you would never hit and run, that would be blasphemy. I mean, you used to be out there crushing, swinging as hard as you could. Everything about baseball today is so different, right?
it's completely different. I'm still a strong believer, and we've gotten away from it a little bit. And I started to do it in Texas, where reiterating how important it is to play the game correctly. That doesn't mean we
Mm-hmm.
play little ball. We've got to do this,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
moving runners is a big deal. And I don't care if you're Aaron Judge or you're the 26th man on the roster.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah, yeah,
creates it it creates a special camaraderie amongst players when you play the game right. When you move the runner from second to third and that next guy hits a sacrifice fly,
yeah,
that
yeah,
guy on
yeah,
deck may not have driven in a run for a week. All of a
yeah,
sudden, he believes he can drive a run in again. That's where the real gold is in playing the game
yeah,
right. Not just doing it for sake of
yeah,
doing it. There's a reason, and the teams that did that I played on, it was amazing because I wasn't a believer in team chemistry as a young player. I thought
yeah,
you get the best talent, and you go steamroll your opponent.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
when I went to Seattle, that kind of faded because I thought, no, you need the talent,
yeah,
but I'll tell you what, a team chemistry. I watched it with the Toronto Blue Jays a year ago. They were a very talented team.
yeah,
They weren't a better team than Seattle Mariners. They beat
yeah,
them in the
yeah,
postseason, and they almost beat the Dodgers in the World Series because they were a talented team, but they played the game right. They didn't
yeah,
strike out. They genuinely pulled for one another. That's what I would tell the young players. I said, you've got a team chemistry. We all have BS'd our way and pat a guy in the ass, way to go. But I've been on a lot of teams where it's like, yeah, why does he get to do it? And
mm-hmm.
when you are genuinely pulling for your teammate, doesn't have to be your friend. You don't even have to like him.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
if you genuinely pull for him during the game, now that's something that you can't teach, and that's something that makes you a very tough opponent.
Yeah, yeah, powerful, and so one of the things we talk about in our program all the time is, serve the game. Basically, we want to play the game the right way, serve the game. How it should be played, and the other thing is we want to create a culture where we enjoy our teammates' successes as much as our or more than our own. And when you can genuinely do that, you got something. Now you got to work at it. It takes time, but I think that stuff's so powerful. No, and I love that story when he told me that. A guy lives right down the street from me. I'm sure you know him well, Tito Terry Francona. He,
Yes,
he
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 was at
lives
the
here in
game
the
the
off
other
season.
night. Yeah.
Yeah, he and I become really good friends, and just watching him work, and he's a master at creating these cultures and how people treat each other. So when he's with the Guardians, he calls me. He said, "Hey, this is it. I'm going to retire." This is like in July, and I'm like, "All right." His health was struggling a little bit. So I said, "Well, I'm going to come out for a series." I went out for a series because I just wanted to watch him work for 3 days. And they were actually, it was the first week of September. They were playing the Twins. They were four back of the Twins, playing in Cleveland. Hey, you win 2 of 4, you win 3 of 4. We're in that September pennant chase. So we go to the first game and they ran out of pitching. They literally had their third baseman, I can't remember his name, who I think that day threw more pitches for a position player than anybody, like 85 pitches, and like in the history of baseball. They lost 23-2. Okay, in a big game. And obviously he's devastated. But just watching how he handled everybody, from the front office people to the equipment managers to the players. I mean, whether the guy was from a Hispanic country, an African American guy, whatever. This dude is a master at how to treat people, and so I've really like learned a lot just watching him and how he treats people and how just he's kind of this shucks guy, but man, he's a genius at creating cultures, and so powerful, real powerful stuff.
Yeah, I never got to play for Francona, but just the guys, through my life, teammates and guys I played against, whenever it comes to talking about him, they always have high praises. And there's certain
Yeah,
guys like that have a special demeanor, that are just have a way about them, that that
yeah,
that when they walk in the room, they do have that authority figure. I mean, I think that's important. Being the head guy is you walk into a room, people
mhm,
know you're there. It doesn't have to be in a negative way; it can be in a very positive
yeah,
way. But I think Tito kind of has that. He's got that soft edge to him. At the same time, he's the
yeah,
boss, and I think
yeah,
that's
no
led
doubt.
to a lot of success and some world championships.
Yeah,
I want to talk about Richie, our buddy Richie Sexson.
yeah,
Obviously, from the podcast, people know he's been a good friend of mine for a lot of years, buddy of yours. I
yeah.
want to hear about this because in this little circle, I've got I told you at the top, got a circle. We got a buddy of mine, Mark Stoltz, who's one of my only childhood friends that I still keep. By the way, his daughter, Maddie, was a Palm girl for you guys. She just graduated
Oh,
this year.
okay,
She's been on a Palm team, so she's been at all the
okay,
games.
okay.
And this is how a part of the reason I started watching too, because she'd always tell me, Brett, you got to watch the U of A basketball game because I'm going to be there. And so anyway, my basketball career ended my sophomore. I think of my sophomore year. JT Snow from the top shelf. I mean, rejected me so far into the seats. And I kind of thought to myself, what am I doing here? I excel at this other sport so much, and I'm kind of like a scrub getting to dress for the
Yeah.
varsity game. I can't handle this. I can't handle my ego can't handle it. That made me quit. To this day, Mark Stoltz, who grew up with me, and Richie Sexson, who's heard all the stories of me growing up in my hoop prowess. I can't get away from it. Anytime basketball is brought up, Richie, oh Boone, he stinks. He hit the side of the he hit the side of the backboard on a free throw. He told me, he goes, me and Tommy played against each other. Tommy
Yeah,
was a
yeah, yeah.
really good player. I want to hear about Richie Sexson for everybody. How good of a player was he?
Well, Richie, we grew up in Southwest Washington. So I grew up in Kelso, Washington, and he's out in Brush Prairie, Washington. Two small blue collar towns. We played in the same league in high school, and we weren't like friendly. We not any. We just our little small town. We lived in these little bubbles, so we probably didn't get out much. So it's not like we hung out socially growing up. But boy, he was a great athlete. I'll give that. Yeah, I think I don't know if it's a urban legend or true, but I think he was all state in football, basketball, and baseball. And you just don't do that in the state of Washington, all three. And basketball, he was pretty good. I think we always kicked their ass, but I think he was pretty good. I mean, we had a 7 footer, and Richie was probably like 6'6". So I think
Right.
I think he had probably some problems playing over our 7 footer a little bit, but he was just a great athlete and just a real good guy, and we were really proud, being from the same area, to watch him just take this baseball thing on. And I mean, he had an incredible career. I mean, for a big guy to hit like that, there's just not many of them, that can get that bat around like that. And so he was great. And I also grew up with another guy. You'll know this name. He was a high school basketball teammate of mine, Jason Schmidt.
Absolutely.
Schmitty and I grew up in Kelso,
Nasty.
Washington together. Oh yeah, yeah, through that heavy fastball changeup,
Oh,
and yeah, and great guy. So he lives down here in Arizona now. So he and I get to hang out a little bit. But yeah, but Richie was an incredible athlete. I'll give him that. And you know, to be, I don't even know what did he get drafted. What round did he get drafted? I mean, he went straight out of high school, right?
he went straight out of high school. We became buddies. We played together 1 year. All I remember about Richie is, and I'm sitting there because he had, back to back 40 home run years,
Yeah, yeah,
and we played together late in my career. He had a few years left, and I just remember looking at him, 6'8", 6'9", whatever he
yeah,
is. I said, "That
yeah,
must be nice having that leverage up there,
yeah, yeah.
on the baseball." And he'd look at me and he'd go, "Yeah, but for you, it must be really nice having those short arms." He goes, "Having this big of arms as a hitter," he goes,
Yeah, yeah,
"Brett,
yeah.
you know how much can go wrong?" I said, "Touche, you're right." So there's pros and cons of being big and wiry and long,
Yeah, no
or
question.
short. Short.
Yeah,
Me, short with short arms. There are
yeah.
some advantages to that.
Yeah, no, no. Richie's son goes down to U of A, so him and I get to hang out, a couple times a year. So no, it's been great reconnecting with him, and yeah, just really proud of the career he had. He represented our little small town pocket of Washington in a really positive way.
Yeah, our executive director of the podcast, Rich Herrera, his son goes to U of A, Rigney.
Nice,
So
yeah,
so
yeah,
he's
great
getting on
spot.
me about that too. All right, I want to talk about, you kind of made your name. You talked about Gonzaga 01 to 21 before you took the job at U of A.
Hmm.
And you were known as a recruiter, and not
Yeah.
just a recruiter, but an international recruiter.
Hmm.
Um, Take me through a little bit going into those livers, looking at a 16 or 17-year-old. What made them special? What stood out to Tommy Lloyd in the recruiting process? Because that's a whole different animal.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, obviously you're looking at a couple things, and when I go out and evaluate, I don't look a lot at stats. I'm definitely going to go more with my eyes and just kind of my gut. But I honestly, little things like body language. When I watch someone play, I watch how they interact with the officials, how they interact with their teammates. During times, how they interact with their coach in a tough moment of the game. How do they warm up? Do they warm up with the team? Or are they off on the side doing their own thing? Are they too cool for school? Because I think you're looking for, you a lot of things in recruiting. If you can get a guy with a great foundation of character, he's probably going to be really good in your culture. So you're looking, you're looking at those attributes, but at the same time, of course, you're evaluating like talent and ability. You have to hit a certain level. And so for us at Gonzaga, we're in little old Spokane, Washington. Kind of this small Catholic school, and it was known for having John Stockton. And then that was about it in basketball. But Coach Few and it's Dan Munson before him, they had this vision that it could be more. And I just remember one day, I don't know, I just got done playing low level Europe. So I'm back as my first year as a GA. I'm 23, 24 years old. Coach Few walks by my desk and flops this media guide from this German national team, U18 national team, youth national team. And he's like, "Hey, why don't you look into some of these guys?" So, man, I was on it. And he gave me a phone card. Back in the day, you used to have these phone cards, like Sprint or whatever, and you had
Right, right.
27 numbers
I
you had to
remember those.
dial. So,
Yeah.
so, so he gave me this phone card. And so I started calling a bunch of people in Europe and just working. And he called me into his office a couple months later and was like, "Hey, did you lose that phone card?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Because it was probably issued to him, and he's like, "No," he's like, "Well, there's thousands of dollars of charges on it." And I'm like, "No, I got it right here." And he's like, "Well, did somebody," I said, "No, no, I've been calling people every night." And he said, "You've been calling people every night?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, don't worry about the bill. You just keep calling people." And so, because we knew we had to increase our level of talent, we had to go fish in waters that weren't being overfished. We couldn't
Yeah.
beat Pac 10 or 12 schools and recruits. So we started going over to Europe, and I started spending a lot of time over there, developed a lot of relationships. And it would be interesting to know, like for me, like to draw a parallel to baseball, the game was being played differently in Europe than it was in the US. And a lot of the US trends we have now in basketball have come from Europe a little bit. So I think we got out ahead of the curve a little bit because we started seeing the game a different way. We started getting different players. We I mean, over the years, we've had a lot of them, but you get guys like Sabonis, Arvydas
Yeah.
Sabonis' son, who plays for the Kings now, him, and they just play the game a different way because they're taught a little different, just because they're taught in Europe instead of the US. And I think that really helped us kind of get out ahead of the curve a little bit, not only on just getting some talent, but like on how we see the game. So my question to you is the game played different, like in the Dominican or or Venezuela, than it is in the U.S. with these kids growing up? I mean, is it a different style of play?
I think it is. It's more of a culture thing, and it's more of some of the greatest players in the world, and most of them actually are from the Dominican Republic, because I think the difference is it's the way out for young
Yeah.
players. It's the
No,
way out of sometimes poverty. Baseball is the king of everything over there, and if you're a baseball player, you're treated as such. You're a king. You're a rock star. Um, I think I don't see it much different in the Latin communities. I think it's a breaking ball oriented
yeah.
league, so it's break a ball, break a ball, break a ball. They come over here, they make the adjustments, just like in the Japan influence is
Yeah.
becoming prevalent now.
Yes.
Obviously, Otani is a player I played with coming up. Was probably the first that really put it on the map. Well, for me, it was Hideo Nomo that put it on the map, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
there was but Ichiro was definitely the big superstar to put it on the map from a position player standpoint.
Mhm.
Now Shohei Otani has kind of blown that out of the water
Yeah. Yeah.
from the Asian culture. But I think when they all come together at the top level, I think Japan, it's played a little bit differently, and not necessarily played differently. They stick to old school. It's
Yeah.
about little ball. It's about moving runners. Matter of fact, it's not about moving runners. It's demanded. That's how you play the
Yeah.
game. Handled very differently how they interact with young
Mhm.
players. I think the Dominican, though, is the easiest, or the any Latin country. It's the easiest to kind of replicate what goes on in the U.S. The
Mhm.
thing that I find and kind of am envious about today's game, and you were talking about recruiting, I wanted to ask you how much the recruiting has changed since you started in '01 versus now with all our data and all the
Yeah.
new technology. I see that when I was coming up in the early '90s, it was here's a plane ticket, kid. Boom, go find a roommate in
Yeah.
Peninsula, Virginia, and A-ball. And you could have lived in the Dominican your whole life. You don't know a lick of English, and you're
Yeah.
just hanging out with your new buddy that's on your team. And that's
Yeah.
how they went about it. Now it's unbelievable that they bring them over, they put them up, they take care of them, they teach them the language. They have to go to class as a young player, and I think it's
Mhm.
great to let them to make that it's got to be a shock. I think about
Yeah.
it all the
Yeah.
time. It's like if you sent me to Japan when I was 16 and said, go play, you don't know a lick of the language,
No
and go
question.
find a roommate. That'd be a little bit of a culture. I think they're doing way better job now
Yeah.
at the Major League Baseball level of really integrating these kids and really giving them the best chance they can to succeed. So I hope that answered your question. I know it's a
Yeah, no,
little
no,
long
no,
winded
no,
again.
no, 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 no. Great, 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 great stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating the parallels you draw. And then, you're talking about Japan. I've had some experience in Japan. I was actually the one who recruited Rui Hachimura and brought him
Really?
from Japan. And you talk about fascinating. Like his first year, he comes to Gonzaga. I mean, he couldn't even practice with us because he didn't understand the language. I mean, for one, and two, he couldn't go at game speed. And then now you're looking at him out there with the Lakers. So we had to teach him first off just how to practice and learn the language. And so, yeah, I mean, that stuff is so fascinating. And you're 100% right. I tell people all the time, like, imagine sending your kid over to Japan and telling them to go figure it out and go to
Oh,
a uni-
figure it out.
go to a university, go to class, learn a language. Like, come on,
Right.
no chance. Us Americans are soft. We got no chance.
For me, the recruiting process, yeah, it comes down to how much ability do you have? In
Yeah,
baseball, it's bat speed. It, bottom line is, if you can't hit a breaking ball, I don't care how much ability you have in
yeah.
baseball, you're not going to make it. But other sports is different. But I found one thing that I can't get away from as far as deciding is this guy a real player or not,
Hmm.
and sitting down and having lunch with a gentleman and talking to him, see what he's got to say,
For sure.
not what he says, how he says it, looking into his eyes. Does he believe what he says? I don't think that's a real, I don't think there's anything else from a technology standpoint that could replace that for me of finding out, is this guy the real deal? How much did you weigh that in your recruiting?
Oh, almost all of it. I'm definitely going to go with my eyes on just evaluating the talent with my eyes for one, and two, you're 100% right. Talking to them, having a conversation by themselves. Not with their people around, not with their agents around. Because at the end of the day, I always tell the player, like, it's great you have the support system and you need it. It's really important. But at the end of the day, until you can function on your own with your coaches and your teammates, the support system it's not gonna be good enough. You have to be able to function on your own on a day-to-day basis and relationships with your coaches and your teammates. And I think that, like what you said, is sitting down at a table with them, having lunch, looking them eye to eye. Tito told me, like, you coaches, you basketball coaches, doing all this scouting. He's like, the best scouting you can do is take a guy out to dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Take a guy out to dinner, tell him you love him and help him and talk to him about the game. He said that's more important than another film session. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. It's the whole thing. It's like, sometimes I ask a question. It's not. I don't care what your answer is. I want to see
Yeah,
how you answer. I want to see
for
how you
sure.
answer it. I don't want to. I don't care what the you know what the actual answer is. You've been coaching so long now, and you've had so many great players come through the systems you've been involved with. How much do you follow the guys that you had onto their? It could be a European career, the
Yeah.
NBA. Does it make you proud? Like, wow, that is awesome. That I was a little bit of a part of what he's doing on, and how I'm sure you have a million people in that phone that you keep in contact with that went through a program, not only U of A but the Gonzaga
Yeah.
for years and years. Uh, how cool is that? As far as just
It's
sitting
amazing.
back, yeah,
It's amazing just knowing, like, little things. You start thinking about crazy stuff, like, I mean, the basketball and the playing stuff's cool, but like, you go to a player's wedding.
yeah,
Okay. And well, that's cool. But you think, well, okay, but I recruited that guy. I recruited that dude. And he and I had a real special relationship. And that's one of the reasons he came to play, whether it's at Gonzaga or Arizona. And so he chose to come to play there. And then he met this girl while he's in college. You know what I mean? And I'm like, it's amazing you figure out, like, how you really help people connect the dots in their lives. And you were a small part of them coming to Gonzaga or them coming to Arizona. And that's where they met their future wife. And then, this, that, the degrees and stuff is so cool. I mean, when you start thinking about things like that. But yeah, I try to follow the guys as much as I can. I don't do a great job of staying in touch with all of them on a daily basis. I mean, here and there for sure. But for one, it's a lot of guys. And two, I'm such a now or next guy that, like, like, I'm the guys that have played for me know I'm 100% focused on the players on our program that day. I always tell people my favorite basketball players in the world are the ones I'm coaching right now. And my second favorite players are the ones that have already played for me. And my third favorite players are the ones that are going to play for me in the future. And I don't get much more complicated than that, because the guys that in the program now, they deserve my love and attention. And so I guess, you only have so much you can give people. So I try to give as much to my team as I can, my current team, and I support our former players when I can. But I do feel guilty that I don't probably do it as much as I should.
you talked about and get. Oh, man, I could talk to you a long time, but I know you've got to get going. I don't want to keep you too long, but you mentioned earlier about uh, playing for March and how important
Yeah.
March is, and the only thing I can go on from a baseball perspective is that 162-day grind or game grind, and then that postseason starts, and it's a
Hmm.
little bit different. Uh, and then I've been to the playoffs, I've been to the World Series. It is different that postseason. I don't know though in baseball if it's as different as the regular season. There's definitely a difference. There's definitely, where you're at when you're in postseason. When you're at Old Yankee Stadium in October or
Yeah.
it's something different than a midweeks series in May. Absolutely. But what's the difference for you? Uh, the grind's about to start for you. This is,
Hmm.
March Madness. It's college basketball's World Series. How does the grind start? Just take me through it. It's starting about now. You said you have one more game left with Colorado,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then it starts.
We were fortunate enough. We already wrapped up, a Big 12 regular season conference championship.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. It was a great accomplishment. But you're right. Now, to me, I think, you could look at it a lot of ways. It could be different, but why can't it be the same? What if we just have the same approach and we're possession by possession, we're steady, we're trying to limit our mistakes, we're trying to play to our strengths. That's when I started working on my stuff last night and kind of writing down some notes, how I'm going to go meet with the team here in a few hours and just kind of start setting the stage for that stuff. Just like, let's double down on our day one habits. Your fundamentals. Let's double down on those and the concepts we're doing. Let's not think we need to reinvent the wheel. But the thing I want to remind the players of is pressure moments. They're gonna happen. You're gonna feel them. And when we hit a pressure moment, how do we respond? Do we panic and have to do something different? Well, probably not. We probably stay steady and let's do the things we value over and over again, and just maybe try to do them a little bit better, and execute a little bit better, and stay in that moment and stay present. And hey, little stuff. Are you blocking out when the shot goes up? That's gonna alleviate a lot of pressure if you can just do that stuff. Are you jump passing without a plan? Are you playing with your feet on the ground, using your fakes? Just all those steadying fundamentals to me are the things that you got to really be good at. And I remember, oh man, they say 2015, just throw a number out there. We're in the Elite Eight against Duke. And Houston, they're big football stadium, so dome. So you play in a basketball game in a dome, like it's like, massive, and there's a little
Right.
court in the middle of it, and it's a tough game, back and forth. Neither team's giving much ground, and we ended up losing like 63-61 or something, and so we didn't get to go to the Final Four that year. And but I remember going back and watching the game, and what I was blown away with is, you have Coach K, who's obviously a great coach and a successful program, and tons of accolades. But going back to watch the game, they they only made like two or three defensive mistakes all game. So everything we got, we had to earn. So I was like, wow, that might be the secret sauce. That's how you consistently, win in the postseason, is just execute. Don't make mistakes. Do your job. And so, I think that's going to be my message to our guys is like, let's do our job in pressure situations. Let's not worry about, we have to do something we haven't done all year, because we've been down 10 and come back. We've been up 15, had teams come back at us, and then we've gotten up 15 again. And so, just staying steady in those pressure moments and not letting a single elimination tournament, mess with your mind as a competitor, but you have to be humble enough to understand too, you can do everything right and still lose. So, just it makes it tough. But yeah, but I'm excited. I'm excited for this build. I think our team's built for it, and I think I'm ready for it. And no guarantees, but I have a good feeling.
I love what you said when you said, why does it have to be any different? And
Yeah.
I just look at it from a player's perspective, and it didn't matter whether I was a young player or I was a veteran player at the time. I don't care what anybody says. I watched my skipper. I watched my manager.
Yeah.
I watched his demeanor, and when it
Hmm.
changed, it's almost like I try to liken it to a person that hasn't flown a lot. Okay,
Yeah.
and they get their first turbulence. The eyes go where? To
Yeah.
the flight
Yeah.
attendant.
Yeah. 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 For
If
sure.
that flight attendant remains cool, okay, we're okay. Now, flying as much as you've flown, as much as I've
Yeah.
flown, if that flight attendant starts to panic, there's something wrong. But we've been through our share of turbulence, so we
Yeah. Yeah.
know it's
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. I think of that with my experience in the postseason with skippers. I've looked at
Hmm.
him. All right, is he cool? Because if he's cool, we're going to be all right. But
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
especially for the younger players to keep that demeanor of, yes, it's a big deal. Obviously, there's urgency in the
Hmm.
postseason, without a doubt. but why do we have to change it? We're not going to just, oh, it's the postseason,
Yeah.
all the success you've had, 28-2. It's like, we're not going to just throw that out the window. That's a pretty
No,
damn
no,
good winning formula. So I
for
love
sure.
what you say is let's keep it as much about this at the same as we did during the regular season. I think that's the best recipe. And I don't know why
Yeah.
everybody doesn't have that perspective on it.
Yeah. No, no. I appreciate that. No, no, you're right. And I just think, outside noises, media starts paying attention, people making a big deal. All of a sudden you're a young guy and you got, your mom and dad used to come to the game, fly to game, and now you have all 12 of your cousins here too. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And it's
true.
all that stuff just makes the moment feel bigger than it really is. And yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing watching. I mean, that's why we love sports. We watch 11 great competitors rise to the moment in these pressure situations. It's fascinating to watch, but I bet a lot of them are just really good players who just kind of have the same approach they always would, and they're able to kind of channel that. I had a really cool experience a couple years ago. So Luis Gonzalez, obviously, you know
Right.
who that is. He's a Arizona legend, and he and I have gotten to know each other a little bit. So he was down in Tucson doing an event. I said, hey, you want to come down and talk to our team today? And he's like, yeah. What do you want me to talk about? I said, I want you to go through the at bat. We're going to put it up on the film room, and I want you to go pitch by pitch through the at bat when you got the game winning hit in the World Series. He said, love to. So he goes in, and then what's cool, he starts the story. Okay, guys. So at this point of the game, I'm 0 for 4. And I cannot hit this dude, this Mariano Rivera guy. I'm like, I can't hit him. I'm one of these guys. And then he goes through the whole at bat, like what he saw. But his mentality was like, not today, Mariano. I got this one. And he gets a pitch and he gets sawed off kind of. And I think it's a broken bat single, right? I think
Yeah,
it
to
was
center field. Well, sawed off the correct way. That's what RBI guys do when they're
yeah,
beat.
yeah,
They keep it through the center of the field, and I'll tell you, I watched that at bat, and I played
yeah,
against Louis for a long time. I watched that at bat, and everybody, oh, it's a flare, and it was just a sawed off. I said, do you realize how good of an at bat that was? That was
yeah, yeah,
tremendous. He knows Mariano. It's still to this day the best I've ever seen at the end of a game.
yeah,
Trevor was pretty awesome, Hoffman, but
yeah,
Mariano's probably one of one. And when you're facing a guy like that, especially if he's got your number, Louis just at that time, and Louis had a huge year that year, that
yeah, yeah,
01
yeah,
season. And it was just like, he's got my number, but I've got a job to do right here, and it's a
yeah, yeah,
situation. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he needed a sac fly in that situation. I think it was a runner on third, less than 2 outs. So as a
yeah,
guy, you've got to
yeah,
get it done. You got to find a way to get that runner in from third. And Louis did what a lot of great RBI guys through the years historically have done, is just flared it through the middle. He knew
yeah,
what pitch was coming. That was one thing about Mariano. When in doubt, you knew it was just a cutter away. It was a heavy as
yeah,
hell cutter, but you knew it was coming. And Louis kind of topped off that unbelievable year he
yeah.
had with the that big hit. So yeah,
But
awesome.
to talk to our guys about that, getting back to the just guys, I was 0 for 4. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
and I had a
But
chance.
I wanted to be at the plate.
Yeah.
And against a guy that I had struggled against. But no, no, no. This was my moment, and I think that's really powerful stuff.
Well, this has been awesome. I'm not letting you out of here without. All right, give me your pickleball obsession. I know you got a.
Oh
I
my
know you got a
gosh.
pickleball at your house. We had
Yeah, man, you see
the
it right
writer
there.
of the
You
writer
see
of
it?
Entourage, Doug Ellen. He's
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
big pickleball guy. I had him on the show. Uh, what is it about you guys? You guys get this
You know,
pickleball in your and you don't stop. It's like the whole world.
well, I haven't been playing as much, but you can kind of see in the background right there. You see that hoop right there,
Yeah,
right below there is the pickleball court. But Chip's one of my partners. Chip Hale, we play together.
really.
Chip, you baseball guys have such good hands. He literally plays. He switched plays. He's hitting forehands on both sides, and it's a great touch. But yeah, no, I just think for me, it's a fun game because you get to compete, you get to talk a bunch of trash with your boys. Um, you don't have to move too much,
Right.
so
They shrunk
yeah,
that tennis court down.
yeah. And it's a lot easier to play than tennis. So like tennis, like a hack like me can't go hit with a good player. tennis. You just it would be no fun for anybody. But
Right.
like pickleball, the levels are a little closer and a little tighter, and like you can go play with a good player even if you're not a great player. And you can have some fun and it's good enough and it's what's really fun for me is being an average pickleball player, you know, playing with a good player and then playing against, your buddy who's an average player with another good player. Like you do that partnership up, it's a ton of fun sometimes. So yeah, just fun. I don't know. It's a great game, easy to play, fun to get addicted to. Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Yeah. But the
Well, Tom,
camaraderie is the fun. That's the fun part.
Well, Tommy, I appreciate you taking the time out today. I kept you longer than I wanted, but
No, no
it's a
problem.
lot of great stuff, and I appreciate you, especially at this time, how busy you are taking the time for the Bret Boone podcast. U of A, they're 28-2. You just once again you won your third conference championship since you've been the head coach at U of A. Congratulations on that, man. Those two losses in the middle. I know Koa was hurt for both
Yeah.
of them. And I'm like, oh, I want to, because my buddy goes, well, you think they're going to go undefeated? I said,
Oh no.
I don't know, but I want to see them go undefeated.
Uh,
But you picked up where you left off, and you won, I think,
yeah.
6 straight since then. Love watching you guys. Ton of energy. Now I'm a big fan of Tommy Lloyd. I got to hang out with him. And best of luck coming up in this tourney. I think right now you're sitting number 2 behind Duke at number 1. But what a year
Yeah.
it's been so far. And it's kind of, for me, not being a big college hoops guy, because of our buddy Richie, he's
Yeah.
got me back into it. So whenever U of A's playing, I'm always at home, and my wife's like, "Well, when did you start watching basketball?" I said, "I don't know. U of A's kind of got me
I like it. I
back
appreciate that.
watching."
Well, what's crazy? I'll give you to finish. What goes full circle? I grew up a huge California Angels fan. So
Really,
your dad's teams. I mean, because I was a Reggie Jackson guy, like a lot of
right,
people. But
right,
then that team, I mean, I fell in love with that team with, I mean, Doug DeCinces, Rob Wilfong, I mean, Rod Carew,
Rich,
yeah, Bobby Gritch, I mean, just Mike Witt, Kirk McCaskill,
right.
and I grew up, was always a catcher in baseball. So your dad was one of my favorite players. So it's pretty cool that things come full circle,
Very
a
cool.
lot of years later.
Awesome. Tommy, best of luck. For those of you watching the Bret Boone podcast, we're now on YouTube. Check it out. For those of you listening to the Bret Boone podcast, download it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, keep it here.